Again, thank you everyone for coming today. So excited to get into our topic today around healthy fats. Now, these two words juxtaposed next to each other, maybe, 15, 20 years ago, would make absolutely no sense. But the truth is, fats are a source of calories in our diet that really are responsible for a lot of different things that go on in the body. So it's very important to know what are the healthy sources of these fats, the higher quality sources of these fats that will help promote our overall health as well as our brain health, most specifically. So the truth is this: we need them to survive. Every cell in our body is made from fat. Our nerve coverings are made from fat. Our brain is composed of fat. Hormones are made out of fat. And our cells and metabolism run better on fat. Just from a scientific standpoint, dietary fats are kind of stored in the body in case that energy runs low, then the body's able to take those fat stores and to convert them into glucose to provide energy to the body. But not only that, but it's also very paramount in the brain because, as we know, the brain is the hub for a lot of hormone production. And in the presence of dietary fats, hormones are produced and hormones thrive. So that's why we need dietary fats, not only just for those moments and times of fasting, maybe, and the body needs some energy to pull from, so it'll go to our dietary fat stores, but also for overall health in the sense of hormone production. So yes, it's complicated. Eating a fat-free diet is not recommended for your health. Now, there are some parameters around this, right? Of course, if we're dealing with certain people, certain populations that might have certain chronic diseases, my conversation around dietary fats may differ in a sense, but in general, eating a fat-free diet is just not the recommended way to go. Release the need for fat-free foods and overall concern about super high calories due to fats. We're going to talk about the types of fats to focus on. And the Mind diet basically takes that approach, that dietary approach, and doesn't necessarily restrict it to numbers and the amounts that you should have, but more so the sources and the types to focus on. So yes, fats help us absorb all of these beneficial fat-soluble vitamins in plant foods. So just for example, outside of vitamins B and C, all the other vitamins, A, D, E, K, they are all what we call fat soluble. So in the presence of dietary fats, these vitamins are being able to be absorbed into our bodies and utilized. So if you're not consuming healthy fats, then you might have a decreased absorption of very beneficial nutrients that you would get from plant foods and other beneficial foods for your health as well. Certain fats reduce the risk of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and obesity. So we will touch on some of these today.
And I'm just going to let everybody know we have a little information in the chat. If you're new to the Mind diet, there's a little bit of information about the background of the Mind diet. If this is a new conversation, we'll just kind of leave that there for anybody who wants a little bit more of that background. Go ahead, Greg.
Perfect. Okay. So one of the sources of our dietary fats that the Mind diet emphasizes is on our nuts and our seeds. And we're talking about nuts and seeds. We're talking about a lot of different types, whether that's like your almonds, your walnuts, which are more of your nuts, until, you might be talking about your seeds, which will be like pumpkin seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds. So the Mind diet recommends 5 servings of these per week. So what does that serving look like? 1/4 of a cup or a handful, right? So imagine you making a smoothie and you are able to put flaxseed into that smoothie, or making a salad and incorporating chia seeds, or making oatmeal and incorporating chia seeds or flax seeds, or making a salad and you throwing in some pumpkin seeds in there. These are all ways for you to increase some of the intakes of these nuts and seeds into your overall diet. They are high in fiber and healthy fats. So in general, the thing is, when it comes to healthy fats, we're going to find these mainly in our plants. Plant sources of fats are typically going to consist of the better fats for our overall health in our bodies. All right. Now, something that's very specific and special, I can't say specific because they're not the only source of vitamin E, but nuts and seeds are one of the common sources of vitamin E. And vitamin E is neuroprotective. It is an antioxidant. You'll hear me throw that term out a lot, which is one of those nutrients that helps prevent against aging and deterioration of our different body parts. So, an antioxidant is something that we want to promote in our diets as much as possible. And that's what that vitamin E serves as, especially in our overall brain health. Vitamin E is very important, and the nuts and seeds that we get from our diet can contribute to that amount that we get. So how do they slow cognitive decline? Right? So because of that vitamin E and this neuroprotective ability, there's research that shows that it can reduce oxidative stress and overall inflammation in the brain, right? So we talked about that oxidation. That's why the antioxidants from our foods are very important. Inflammation, which can be caused from a lot of different things. I mean, we can talk about that for a long time, but inflammation and oxidation are two separate terms, but they are both things that are not in the favor of our overall brain health and in the favor of our overall function as human beings. So we want ways that we can reduce inflammation and want ways to reduce oxidative stress as well. And nuts and seeds, which is a healthy fat, is just one of the ways to do so. So here are some of them. Now, this is not all of them, but these are just a few. These are honestly some of the ones that have a higher nutrient and overall antioxidant composition. Now, I'm not to say that the other ones that are not on this list won't have them, but these are just some of the ones that have been shown to contain a little bit more. You get a little bit more bang for your buck with some of these nuts and seeds here. Walnuts, almonds, pistachios. Could I see in the comments maybe some of your favorite nuts and seeds that you like to incorporate into your diet? Maybe they're not on this list, but I still would like to see what you all like to consume.
And Greg, we have a question from Miss Mary in the chat. 1/4 cups of nuts per week or 5 times per week?
Great question. So that is 1/4 cups. Just to let's go back to that. So 1/4 cup is the serving. So it's saying 1/4 cup or a handful as the serving, and it's saying to have 5 servings per week. So 5 servings of that 1/4 cup is what this guidance is in regards to the Mind diet. Does that answer the question?
Absolutely. Thank you
Okay.
so much. And I just dropped it into the chat. Let us know your favorite nuts. And are you eating 5 servings of nuts per week? We have some answers. Pumpkin seeds, walnuts,
Pumpkin seeds.
sesame
Yes.
seeds, one of my favorites, and
Yes.
Brazil nuts.
Hazelnuts. Yup.
Vicky says pecans. Rachel says all nuts, cashews, pecans, peanuts, almonds,
Yes.
pistachios.
I love it. Let them
Another
roll.
note for pecans.
Uh-huh. I always, when I'm teaching this class with my cohorts, I always take a poll on is the pronunciation pecans or pecans, and I'm always interested to see the diversity in how we speak and how we pronounce it. It's always something fun that I like to do. But yes, these are all wonderful options here. Something that's really interesting about pumpkin seeds, for example, they are a very high source of magnesium. And magnesium is so important in so many different functions in our overall body, in hormone production, meaning that it's very beneficial for the brain and brain health, as well as muscle contractions to build and support strong muscles. So pumpkin seeds are one of my favorite ones to talk about because of that. Somebody asked about peanuts. Peanuts are absolutely okay. Again, it's just not on this particular list. But it's perfectly fine as well. Like you'll find more protein in peanuts than you will in like an almond, for example. So there's some benefit there. But in regards to some of the other like neuroprotective properties, these that are on this list contain a little bit more than a peanut will in that sense? Great question so far. So with that being said, we're going to talk about our olive oil. Now, olive oil is something that we talk about a lot here at CEP. We even did an olive oil tasting the other week where I brought in several different olive oils from around the world, and we were able to sample them with like a balsamic vinegar to make balsamic vinaigrette. Then we sampled another one with some lemon juice to make another type of vinaigrette as well. So olive oil can get fun. We talk about it all the time, but we always try to make it very interesting as well. Now, the reason why we talk about it all the time is because it's actually the most recommended oil when it comes to the Mind diet because of its anti-inflammatory properties. So just scientifically speaking, it contains oleic acid, which is a monounsaturated fat. So to simplify this, I'll say this. In the sense of healthy fats versus unhealthy fats, the main difference between the two is going to boil down to these two words: saturated versus unsaturated. Now, yes, we can extrapolate and talk more about other categories, but it's really going to boil down to those two things. Your saturated fats are going to be found in your animal products, your butter, your margarine, and also two main plant products, which is coconut and palm. So coconut and palm oils will contain saturated fat. These fats are more solid at room temperature. Just think in your head right now, there's some butter in the refrigerator. What is it? It's solid, right? It's solid at room temperature, and this tends to be more inflammatory. High levels of these can build up plaque in the artery walls of your overall blood vessels, to the heart, to the brain, everywhere in your body, which can cause and lead to heart disease over time. That's your saturated fats. Then we have our unsaturated fats. So these will mostly be attributed to our plant fats. So the olive oils, our avocados, our nuts, and our seeds, they contain mostly unsaturated fats. And under the category of unsaturated, you have mono and poly. You don't have to know all of this. I'm just explaining it, right? So monounsaturated fat is going to be the one that is more associated with improved health, with decreased cholesterol, and all of the whole nine. So it's saying here that olive oil, it contains that unsaturated fat, but that monounsaturated fat, which is a little bit more proven to be anti-inflammatory, as that monounsaturated fat is. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But something that's like even more unique about olive oil is that it contains this antioxidant that's called a polyphenol. Now, there are many different sources of polyphenols, but because we're talking about fats, this is actually one of the most prime sources of polyphenols from a fat source or a fat product is in olive oil. So polyphenols, let's talk about that a little bit. So having both monounsaturated and polyphenols in olive oil, and this one says in extra virgin olive oil, provides unique anti-inflammatory properties. So their therapeutic nature is due to the impact on several different biological mechanisms. So we're talking about overall heart health, overall blood sugar levels, inflammation in the body, our overall gut microbiome. So because of the polyphenols and that unsaturated fat, what that tends to do is have a positive impact on our healthy cholesterol levels. So this is why one of the reasons why consuming a healthy fat like an olive oil can in fact help with modulating your cholesterol levels. And because it has an impact on inflammation, that means that it can also have a positive impact on our blood sugar levels as well, and our gut health too, right? Our gut health benefits from our brain being healthy, right? There's a connection between that gut and that brain, and consuming foods that have these polyphenols and these monounsaturated fats can help do that. So we have LDL, which is what we call our bad cholesterol. this is the kind of cholesterol. Think of cholesterol like a car, right? Cholesterol is a fat transporter, essentially. So it moves fat around in the body because different parts of our body needs different levels of fats for different reasons. Specifically, the brain, hormone production. That's one of the main things. So LDL is bad cholesterol because that takes cholesterol out of our liver and deposits it into the heart, which we don't want. That's what leads to cardiovascular disease. That's why when our cholesterols are high, most namely the LDL cholesterol, our doctors are having conversations with us to lower our LDL cholesterol because again, that leads to a lot of fat being deposited into our arteries, into our heart, which is not very beneficial for our overall health. Our HDL cholesterol, on the other hand, is noted as the good cholesterol. Why? Because that takes cholesterol out of our heart, out of our arteries, and deposits it into the liver. So the LDL is taking it out of the liver into the heart. The HDL is taking it out of the heart into the liver. And it's important to be in the liver because that's where our fats break down and fully metabolize in the liver. And that's how we're able to achieve good heart health when our bodies efficiently is able to take that fat out of our arteries and deposit it into the liver. That's why we want to focus on increasing that HDL and lowering that LDL. And as you see here, it says that it enhances its function of cleaning up cholesterol from the arteries and carrying it to the liver for disposal. There you have it there. So that olive oil is a heart healthy fat is what I'm trying to say here. So the role of polyphenols, as I shared with you, 90% of olive oil are polyphenols. That's a very high amount. Now, there's really no way for me to literally count all the polyphenols in olive oil. We probably have to look under a microscope to see them or whatnot, but they are very high in polyphenols, which help to scavenge free radicals, which again leads to inflammation, inhibit inflammatory gene expression, and also suppresses LDL oxidation. So there you have it. The polyphenols are doing everything that we just talked about, helping to lower our LDLs, helping to increase our HDL, also to kind of helping to decrease and lower the overall inflammation in our bodies and in our brains.
We've got a question in the chat, Greg. Can you give some
Yes.
examples of LDLs to avoid?
So remember when I said the difference between your saturated versus your unsaturated fats? That's really where the rubber meets the road here, right? So if we're talking about foods that are going to increase our LDL, our bad cholesterol, we're thinking about foods that are going to help fat be stored inside of our arteries, which exactly what I just talked about. Your animal fats, your those fats that are solid at room temperature are going to be associated with increasing that LDL. So your animal fats, your lard, your margarine, your stick butter, even a lot of like baked and sweet goods are also going to contribute to that LDL because sugar contributes to overall inflammation, right? And that inflammation and that LDL go hand in hand together. So these are some sources of common things that'll help to, I don't want to say help to increase LDL because that's not really a help, but these are things that will overall increase our LDL. Those animal fats
Cheese?
mainly. Say that again?
What about cheese, like hard cheeses, cheddar cheese and cheeses like that? What are your thoughts on those little blocks of cheese that are so many of our favorites in the
I
fridge?
know, I know. In general, cheese will contain some saturated fat because it is an animal fat. So the Mind diet doesn't necessarily give like a super clear, hey, stay away from cheese entirely, but it's one of those things that we would encourage you to limit as much as possible. Now, the difference between your hard cheeses and your soft cheeses, that can be a whole nother class. But that's going to be really the conversation with people that have lactose intolerance. Your hard cheeses like your cheddar or like your Colby Jack, your pepper jacks, some of those harder cheeses tend to contain a little less lactose, which can be more tolerable for somebody that has a lactose intolerance. While your soft cheeses like your brie cheese or like your Mozzarella, for example, is a main one, contains higher levels of lactose, which people are most likely going to have a reaction to if they have lactose intolerance. So that's the difference mainly there. But in the sense of its saturated fat content, your cheese is going to contain saturated fat, and it's one of those things that you want to be careful for.
Great. Thank you
So
so much for that.
if you find yourself having a double cheeseburger, maybe make it a single cheeseburger, right? Little things like that to limit the overall exposure to some of these saturated fat sources. Is there another question, Megan?
That is it. We just got a big thank you from the
Okay.
person that Sheila that sent that in. So thank you, Greg.
No problem at all. No problem at all. So we already kind of talked about the polyphenols here and what they are and what they are important for. But something that I wanted to kind of talk about in this slide here is that it is important that you choose a high quality olive oil. And we'll talk about what a high quality olive oil looks like. There are commercially manufactured olive oils. They require aggressive chemical treatment to extract the oil from the fruit, which can then affect the polyphenols, right? It's just that processing of the olive oil that can eventually impact the amount of quality polyphenols in that olive oil. A lot of times these are cheaper, they're easier to produce, but they come at the expense of the polyphenols. We'll talk about that in a second. Yeah, I didn't mention earlier that polyphenols, yes, the reason why it's really good for our gut health is because, you know, it's like a prebiotic, right? And a prebiotic basically is a food source to feed the healthy gut microbiome to produce a lot of great outcomes in our overall body. We can talk about that for days, but the polyphenols kind of make its way down to the colon, which is where a lot of our gut microbiome, that's where our gut microbiome lives, by the way, in our colon. It feeds that healthy bacteria, which can promote overall health and good brain function in our bodies. So that's just another benefit of those polyphenols. So some things that we want to look for, it's really important. It would be nice to purchase a cold press, unrefined, extra virgin olive oil. Just because cold press, meaning that the exposure to heat has been limited, which can help preserve the integrity of those polyphenols. Unrefined olive oil is what we want to look for. Now, there's a question between, should I get the unfiltered or should I get the filtered olive oil? The difference is the filtered olive oil will look filtered. It takes all the chunks and little olive oil pieces. They are filtered out of that olive oil versus your unfiltered olive oil that will still contain those chunks and small little pieces of olive at the bottom of the bottle. Now, health-wise, they're both fine, but it comes down to preference. Me personally, if there's some chunks of olives in the bottom of my jar or my bottle, I'm personally loving that because I get to reap some of the benefits of some of those little chunks that I'm not getting had it been filtered. But again, completely up to you and your culinary needs and what you like to decide if filtered versus non-filtered olive oil is better. 80% of the olive oils on shelves is fake. Now, this was a stat that we took maybe a couple years ago, so it's still probably still credible to this regard, and even in today's conversation. They are cut with cheap seed oils such as soybean and canola oil. So something that we'll find quite regularly are blends and mixes of olive oil. Like it'll say olive oil on the bottle, then right under it, it'll say olive oil mixed with sunflower oil, right? So in a case like this means that it's not truly a high quality olive oil because we don't even know the percentage of the mixture. We don't know if it's a true 50% split between the two. And even if it was, that means that we're only reaping 50% of the beneficial oil of that olive oil, of the beneficial polyphenols, and etc. And somebody asked me, but what if it's an extra, a cold press extra virgin olive oil mixed with the canola oil? And my thought process behind this, I've personally never seen that before, a high quality olive oil blended with another type of oil. But let's think about it from a production standpoint. If I'm blending an oil, it's because I want to promote that it has olive oil, which everybody knows is good. To save on production cost, am I going to blend soybean oil with a high quality olive oil, or am I going to blend it with a decent subpar quality olive oil? The answer to that is I'm probably going to try to cut costs and save money by using the lower quality olive oil. So in this case, again, I've never seen a soybean or a canola oil mixed with a high quality extra virgin olive oil, but that's just kind of my train of thought when I'm thinking on, do they exist or are they even out there? So when purchasing, here are a couple of different things that we want to look for. We want our olive oil to be stored in a dark glass container. That's something that we want because in general, if we're trying to preserve the polyphenols in the olive oil, we want to limit its exposure to overall heat. We'll talk about cooking with olive oil in a second. Some things that we want to look for. We want to look for cold press, unrefined, extra virgin olive oil. Again, these are just some of those things that we want to look for. Now, there are certain buzzwords around olive oil. You have light, pure, or premium, which sound really good. And if I'm reading that, I'm just like, ooh, I have a premium olive oil. But they don't really tell us what that means. It doesn't really extrapolate on what premium actually means. Premium to Gregory Lafortune might mean differently than, premium to Megan, right? We just don't really know what that means. So sometimes these buzzwords can throw us off and not really offer anything like tangible and really sure as far as what that product actually is. So there are some seals to look for, right? There are certain olive oil councils that basically approve if an olive oil is what it says it is, if it's packaged and produced to the quality that it needs to be produced in, that is the most unrefined as possible. You have the IOC, the COOC, the NAOO. So we'll see what they mean on another slide here, but there's certain seals on a really high quality olive oil to verify the veracity of the claims that it's making on that bottle, and also the quality of the olives used in that oil. Okay. Manufacturing date, harvest date, and expiration date. Obviously, we want to make sure that we're consuming an olive oil that does not go bad, that's not rancid, that's not expired. That's very important. Now, if you can buy organic, great, right? We know organic typically means that it was not treated with any like pesticides that can possibly interfere with the overall quality of the product. So that's fine. But if your olive oil is not organic, but it's in a dark glass container, it's certified, it has a seal, then you still made a pretty good choice here, right? And all of these things are not like a way to say, if you don't do this, then you've made the wrong choice. No, it's just trying to really make sure that we're getting the best quality of a product. These are just some of the recommendations here. And of course, countries of origin are really cool to know too. So I have a olive oil in my cabinet that's from Tunisia. There's another one from Italy. So we have some at CEP that are from Greece and from Spain and just all different types of olives from around the world. When it comes to those, there's really no preference. It really just depends on the person. I have somebody who personally loves one over the other, and that's just up to their culinary needs and culinary preferences, which is perfectly fine.
Greg,
There's also,
we've got a question in the chat about these expiration dates. If we're looking at in our pantry and we've got the dark jar, but maybe it expired 2 years ago, 3 years ago? What are your thoughts on these expiration dates and how it affects things like the polyphenols or the nutritional properties?
That's a really good question. As far as like the overall polyphenols, it's hard to say that they would all be destroyed um due to an expiration date, to be honest with you, because there's so many and they're so potent and strong. Um I would have to, I mean, I've never done personal testing on them to really determine anything like that, but it's just standard to use things by its expiration date. Obviously, in some cases, if something had just expired and maybe it's like a couple days old, we still could get really good quality out of it. But something that's like 2 years plus, I don't know if I don't know if I would recommend it. Is it like, would you still consume it and still be okay? Possibly. But then again, that expiration date is there just to really help preserve the quality of the product and help you consume the product at its peak quality. So, yeah, I don't have any straightforward answer to that. It's really up to your discretion at that point. I personally wouldn't recommend it though.
Yeah, past the 1 year mark, maybe stay on the safe side of some of these food items, especially. And one more question about this list here. A question coming in the chat, should we be concerned with one country of origin over the other? Is there one that's better? Is there a top three? What do we think?
No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, if we're talking about like Mediterranean wise, you might be talking about your Italian or Greek olive oils because these are Mediterranean countries. But as far as preference over one due to a higher nutrient profile or quality, there's no really sure way for me to rank these things, to be honest. Right. For example, if somebody lives in North Africa and Tunisia, where that olive oil is popular, or if somebody lives in the Mediterranean where Greek olive oil is popular, or if somebody lives in California where very high quality olive oils are produced in California, by the way, where that's more popular, then these are three great choices that that person and that individual made. Is I can't say that the quality of the actual olive and the nutrient profile is vastly different between them. They might have some minor differences just because of the region, but it's not something to say like it's vastly different.
Thanks, Greg. Super helpful.
Yeah.
A lot of thanks coming
Yeah.
into the chat for that one.
Okay. So it's up to it's really on preference. Like I know like Italian olive oils. I'm still not an expert on this, but like as far as like trying all of them, I haven't tried all of them. This is too many. But the Italian olive oils are like really spicy. Like you got a really sharp, peppery kick in the back of your throat when you have that one. I personally like that one with salads. I don't know why. I personally like it. I pair it up with a balsamic vinaigrette, throw it inside of my salad, and I just personally like that. So it's just down to preference at the end of the day. You might have a more mild dish that requires you to use more mild flavors where that olive oil would be better if it wasn't as like sharp and peppery and strong. So it takes a little bit of experience for you to really develop that palate and for you to know what you really like.
Let's talk a little bit about the world of olive oils because there's so many different kinds. A sign of a healthy olive oil is going to be high in polyphenols. And in the oil, it's when you get that peppery kick in the back of your throat. If you pour a little teaspoon of olive oil and you drink it, you might actually sometimes get a cough. And olive oils range from dark green to light champagne color. For instance, Italian olive oils have a dark green and more of an herbal flavor, whereas Greek olive oils are green with a very, very strong flavor. Spain tends to have more of a golden yellow and they're fruity and nutty. So I encourage you to try some different olive oils and experiment with some cooking and as salad dressings. And again, just take a little teaspoon of it and you can taste the different ones and see which ones you might prefer.
And that was Margot, our other dietitian who works with us. So yeah, there's just different types originating from all over the place. Just get a head start and just try different types. I would just start off like that if I were you, if you're really trying to get into it and determine which one you like the best. These are just some of those seals that I talked about last time. So you have the IOC, which is the International Olive Oil Council. Then you have the California Olive Oil Council, the NAOO, which is the North American Olive Oil Association. So they have trusted and set seals of standard when it comes, or standard and seals of olive oils. And their standards, their seals are going to be mainly focused on the quality of the olives that are, that olive oil consists of. That's something that's really important to know here. Their seals are not necessarily focused on like organic versus non-organic, or this particular olive from this particular country. No, it's just talking about wherever that olive comes from, the quality of the olive and how it was processed and how it was produced to create that olive oil is where you'll find these different types of seals here. So if I were you, I would encourage you to find out, if you're looking for a good quality olive oil, if you find that it has one of these seals, then you've probably made a pretty good choice as far as your selection goes. So Bragg's is a brand. Now, I should have updated this slide because we know inflation has occurred in the world. But this is a pretty good brand if you're looking for a pretty good solid olive oil brand. This is one that is from Greece. This is not my personal favorite, but this is one that is a little bit more cost effective than some of the other olive oils that might be out there. Really good quality here. It's USDA certified, and it has a non-GMO label on it, and I believe it does have one of those seals on it. I just don't remember which one. But if you're just looking to get started, this could be a really simple one, easy one that you can get started with. As you can see, it contains some of those things that we're looking for. It's in that darker bottle, right? We see that. I don't know if this one particularly is glass or not, but again, it's in that darker container to protect the quality of the overall nutrients inside of that oil. So there are so many other ones, so many different brands, so many different types, right? So of course, it's up to you to really decide which one that you want to go with and which one that you might like. So cooking versus non-cooking. This is one of those things where it's still kind of in the air, to be honest with you. Like on one side of things, they say don't cook with olive oil because of the fact that it has a lower smoke point, which means that it cannot withstand high temperatures. That's on one side. And on another side, you'll see people that say, I cook with olive oil all the time, and even research showing that those polyphenols are really strong, and that even in the presence of heat, that they can still stay intact. Now, look, I'm always gonna be on the safe side and just recommend what I know. I know that olive oil in general has a lower smoke point, meaning that it can tolerate lower temperatures okay, but like super high temperatures, not so much. That's why you don't really deep fry with an olive oil. And I mean, that's a very expensive oil that you're deep frying with too. We're gonna keep that in mind. But in general, if you cook with it, if that's the only oil in the house and you don't feel like leaving the house to go get some oil, then it's perfectly fine to use that to make whatever you need to make. But on average, I would recommend you using your olive oils for more room temperature products and foods, just to kind of help preserve the quality of those polyphenols, and because that's kind of what it's more intended for in this case. So if we are talking about what to use in high heat, we'll recommend avocado oil because that has a much higher smoke point, meaning that it can tolerate higher heats a lot easier than your olive oil. Coconut oil also has a high smoke point, but because of its overall saturated fat content, we always recommend limiting it and using sparingly. Coconut palm oils are very popular in like African countries, Caribbean countries as well. So, it's okay to incorporate these types of things. But then again, we just have to be careful if we're trying to watch our overall like cholesterol health. High levels of coconut oil, palm oils, butter, margarine, those animal fats are not going to be as beneficial for our overall health. So this is a book. It's called Extra Virginity, The Sublime World of Olive Oil, that talks about olive oil's history, the evolution of it, some of the manufacturing processes that are happening today. So just some information out there if you would like to learn more about olive oils. Also, you can find out a ton online as well. There's tons of rich history on olive oils originating from different parts around the world. I'd encourage you to tap into that if you're interested in looking into more of that. So here's something that I would encourage you to try. As olive oil, as olive oil is beneficial for our overall health, consuming 3 to 4 tablespoons per day. And I know that might sound like a lot, but if you find like you need to increase your consumption of olive oil, I would just consider having a teaspoon, starting off with tablespoon, starting off with 1 tablespoon a day. Up to 3 and 4 is fine, but just increasing the levels of those polyphenols, those monounsaturated fats into your overall diet is a really good idea, and I would encourage you to do so. You can liberally apply to vegetables as you roast your vegetables after you remove them out the oven. You could totally just sprinkle some olive oil on there, which can help kind of soften them up a little bit, but also increase the olive oil consumption that you have. You can pour them into smoothies. This one is not as popular. You can add to cooked rice or vegetables, or as I mentioned early, even making your own vinaigrettes to include them into salads and other dishes like that. So that's going to wrap it up for what we talk about today in regards to our overall olive oils and healthy fats. I hope this class was helpful and engaging for you. And I just want to know if anyone else has any other question or anything else that they wanted to share or ask for today.
Let's see, looking over the chat, we did have a little question about, this California blend of extra virgin olive oil, which is Argentina, Chile, and Greece, thinking about the blends and things like that. Any differences when we think about doing some of these blended olive oils that maybe even a little bit more affordable?
Sorry. I think when it comes to some of those blends, that's a little different than blending with a completely different type of like food, like a canola oil, an olive oil blend. It's different when you're blending different oils from different countries. But yes, I think it is a cost-effective method. I'm not sure on how high quality the olive oil from that particular blend or that portion of that blend is. It's one of those things where I'm just like, I'm not sure, right? Maybe that's a time where I'm utilizing some of those other practical skills we talked about, making sure it's bottled a certain type of way, making sure it contains one of those seals. Maybe that's where I'm a little bit more focused on trying to ensure one of those things in a specific case like that California blend olive oil. It could still very well be a good quality olive oil, still rich in polyphenols. Again, it's just one of those things where if that's what you can do, then it's better than nothing. But if we're looking for like really like high quality olive oil and having like the certainty of that, then of course making sure that we stick to some of those things that we talked about today.
Thanks, Greg. That's perfect. And the other question that came up early on into the presentation today, a lot of times people hear a little bit about the MIND diet and it reminds them of the keto diet. Can you talk a little bit about some of the differences? We put them into the chat just a little bit about, the purpose of the MIND diet is for brain health. The purpose of the keto diet sometimes is around blood sugar control, weight management, even epilepsy treatment. There's a lot of difference in the micronutrients and the things that they emphasize, but can you talk a little bit about why we do MIND diet over keto diet?
Oh, absolutely. They are so different. They're not even remotely close. I'll just share that with you to start. The keto diet is going to be like 90% of your calories coming from fats. Well, anywhere between 50 to 90% of your calories coming from fats. We're talking about fats just under a microscope today. This is not, or this shouldn't be the main composition of your overall diet, right? While the keto says focus mainly on fats, and the keto will even not put any restrictions or any warnings on some of those saturated fats, which is another thing to be careful for. I had a client who was on the keto diet for 3 years, in great shape physically, but can't figure out why his cholesterol and his triglycerides are elevated. And I'm just like, it's the keto diet, right? It's that high fat consumption. So in the case of the mind diet, it's not necessarily focused on high fat. It's helping you see the quality and the type of fat that you should choose, still in moderation, right? Today we were just looking at it under a microscope today, so maybe that's why it seemed like they're similar, but they're nowhere near remotely close to one another.
That is so helpful. It's nice. Well, sometimes we hear these diets and we compare one to the other. It's nice to know the differences between them. And I think one of the things about the mind diet, it's a really sustainable thing to keep up. You know, we can do it really easily. It's not these exact measurements and things like that. A little bit more wiggle room than getting your body into that ketosis state. So thank you all so much for joining us today. We're about at 3:00. We're going to post this recording to our YouTube page if you want to reference it. We'll also include it in the monthly newsletter that is sent out at the end of the month with all of our recordings. Tomorrow, that email will be sent out. So you'll have a copy of that in your inbox. And thank you, Greg, so much for coming and sharing your expertise. This has been a really enlightening chat that sometimes we just need to make these small little changes in our lives, and they can have a huge impact on brain health, just one small change at a time. There's a lot of thank yous coming in through the chat, and we just appreciate your expertise.
No problem. I just wanted to say this one thing. So somebody did ask about some people who can't tolerate olives because of spice. I just want to say this. So olive oil in its nature, when consumed, you'll feel that spicy peppery kick, but it's not necessarily considered a spicy food. So it's something that you can still probably consume without having those adverse reactions of like, reflux or whatnot. But by itself, a high quality olive oil will give you that peppery kick. So that's something I wanted to mention. It's not necessarily considered a spicy food. Incorporated into other dishes won't necessarily give you that spice. So I did want to say that before leaving today. But thank you everyone for coming today. It was really great. I hope that it was really informative for you all and enjoyable. And I can't wait until the next time we meet again.
All right, everybody. We'll see you all next week. Same time, same place. Thank you so much, Greg.
All right, guys. Bye. No problem. Bye.